Okay, Larry W6WUH with what I hope will be the last video on the Gonset Commander for a while. So what we did, I guess I should have turned this around the other way. Let's just take a look here real quick. We can. Got the power connector made up. Got that in the mail and got that made up. So we made up a power cable for the transmitter, and here I've got my my universal mobile power supply that gives me 300 and 400 volts of B plus and filament voltage and all that, and it's got a little push to talk relay on it here, which will key the high and low B plus, and we'll key an antenna relay and some other stuff. I couldn't find my 12 volt antenna relay, but anyway, we've got it hooked up there so that there's no B plus on it until you key it. I did wire up this on-off switch so that it will put 300 volts on the oscillator to spot it. Oh, not a very good switch. There it goes. But otherwise, the low and high B plus are off unless you key the thing. I've got the passive VFO hooked up here, and you can see there's plenty of grid drive. Got it hooked up to the peak reading watt meter and the oscilloscope, and it's just a pass-through thing, and listening on the monitor receiver. So W6WUH on the dummy load. As you can hear, there's plenty of audio. Hello, and you can over-modulate it if you want to. I've got the gain, the audio gain set pretty high, but unless you get right on it, you won't run it into clipping. But if you do, it will. So there's peak reading watt meter. Hello, an awful lot of audio. And it doesn't sound too bad. We're listening on the FT450 in the AM mode. So there we go. Show you a couple of things. Guess I don't have to keep transmitting. Here's the here's the way the power plug is wired up. 1, 2, and 4 jumper together. 4 is the chassis ground, which carries common filament voltage of B minus, push to talk ground, all of that stuff. And 1 and 2 are tied to that to keep the oscillator and PA cathodes grounded all the time, because we won't run it in CW. Pin 3 is 12 volts for the hot. Pin 4, as I said, is the chassis ground, all the common grounds. Pin 5 is a high B plus. We're running it with 396 volts, 400 volts under load on the plates, and we're running the low B plus actually at 272. We've got a choice between 272 or 335, and the audio is very hot if we run it that way. 7 is a push-to-talk switch, and 8's no connection. This is the modification I made. Used the front panel on-off switch to connect 300 volts to the oscillator for a spot switch in case receiver doesn't have that provision. But if you're going to run it with the high and low B plus strapped together, do not do this. Do not wire pin 9 up like that, because otherwise you'll key the transmitter without keying the antenna relay, and there'll be no load. You'll blow up your modulation transformer. Other things will happen. And in order to make that spot switch works, the other side of the on-off switch jumper to pin 6, which is the oscillator B plus, the low B plus. So it comes through the switch and goes right there. That was the number of wires I had. So anyway, that's what we done. It's pretty straightforward. We're making, with 400 volts on the plate, we're making 20 volts of 20 watts of carrier. I have not reduced the screen resistor from 30K to 25K, but I don't think it matters. It's modulating fine. I don't need any more power out of it than this, and seems to be working okay. If you crank the audio up too much, it will splatter, so I've got it to what I think is a happy medium for a low power transmitter. So there we go. Got the case back on it. First time I run it with the case. A lot of heat coming out of these little holes. There's no fan. Been running about 20 minutes, half an hour. Case is just barely warm to the touch, so I think they've got that engineered pretty well. So that's the pretty much the final outcome. I have not put new capacitors in this thing. Might hum a little, but not too bad. And I'll do that for safety's sake. But I suppose one could try to crank more power out of this thing. But as it is, we're running 30 watts input, and that's all the modulator tubes are really rated for, is half of that. So if you try to run more RF output, you're going to run into some problems with the running out of audio. But the other consideration for this thing is that 396 volts is also that's not only the plate voltage for the final amplifier, but it's also the same voltage that's applied to the plates of the modulator tubes. Well, 6V6s, 7C5s are supposed to be, you know, a maximum B plus of 315 volts. Gonset recognized this, and they said, well, the tubes seem to last a long time, and their plate dissipation is not being exceeded, and the distortion doesn't seem to have gone up. In guitar amplifiers that use 6V6 outputs, I think they use 400 volts and more on the plates, even in the clean mode, not the distorted mode. So I think from what we know about the 6V6 tube as a vertical amplifier in televisions, as an RF output tube and little transmitters and in modulators, that it will work okay, but I'm not going any higher than this 400 volts. I think it's asking for trouble. The modulation transformer is a special unit. It's not readily replaceable. So the best thing to do is not to lean on this thing too hard. And I don't see any problem really running it at 300 volts either. With 300 volts and 315 volts and not having changed the screen resistor, I was still getting 15 watts of output. And I could change the screen resistor, and probably it would go up a little bit and it might modulate better, but it seemed to just modulate like a bandit no matter how you run it. So very satisfactory little transmitter. Been no trouble at all, and boy, am I happy. So there we go. That's about all I can tell you about the Gonset Commander. This is the Commander 2, which is the last version. It may be in the schematic I have says Commander C, I guess. So that's the latest schematic. The schematics, by the way, are on Bama. They're in PDF format, so they're good quality. And I recommend, if you get one of these transmitters or want to duplicate one by building it, that you go to Bama and get that original Gonset manual and the high quality schematics that's there. W6WUH, thanks for looking.